have to be talking about our own experiences. We have to be talking about why this matters to ourselves, to the people in our lives, the difference it makes to be able to chart your future, to be able to control your health. These are real things that most people understand and appreciate and relate to. So first we have to be talking about it. Second, we have to be sharing that information. People have to see what's happening. I mean, we did focus groups in Virginia after who's heard of the vaginal ultrasound that was going on in Virginia? Like, everyone's heard that, right? It was on the Daily Show, right? We're doing focus groups in Virginia, and we were asking them, would you get involved? Would you want to, take action? How do you think this experience should be? And they were all like, we couldn't get any traction off of it. We're thinking that this has been all over the news. It's been everywhere. And people in Virginia said to us, well, isn't it like you want it to be? Isn't it affordable? Isn't there a clinic everywhere? Isn't it accessible? Isn't it something that's already paid by insurance? They all assumed all that. And then when we said to them, here's actually the fact. The fact is, here are all the laws. Here's what this means. And they're like, what do you mean? When did that happen? Who did that? Where was I? It's like, people have a lot going on, and now we're being bombarded even more than ever. So we have to be sharing this information, and we have to be making sure that people know tangibly exactly what they can do and to whom they need to do it with, right? So I think there's a lot of information that we need to be sharing, and we need to be organizing in a far more powerful way than we have before. But I also want to be clear, in these states, Georgia, this is not that people in Georgia weren't organizing, right? It's not that they weren't mobilized. That bill passed by one vote, and it passed by one vote who was someone who was being pressured by the governor who stole the election, right? It's all interconnected, as Heather pointed out. So I think we have to be supporting the groups on the ground. This is what we do. We work with the organizations in states and in cities who are trying to do this work. We need to get that information out and give people the tangible things that they can do to make a difference that aren't just about talking about the Supreme Court and Roe, which we need to do, but that's really reified and external for most people. It's got to be tangible. It's got to be something they can do day in and day out. I want to go back here, and then I do see you.
Hi. So I'm a Latinx woman that actually does a lot of sexual health teaching. And I just find it very frustrating at times that the education that's being provided is so frustrating to think of other words, and that we have to resort to abortion, and that's being attacked already. But there's so much more that we can do prior to getting there. Educating women on their cycles, educating men on how to, be able to have that empowerment as well. There's just so much out there that we just don't talk about, and we have to get creative with it, get more involved with it. But as one sexual educator out there, what can we do to get more involved? What can we do to bring a bigger crowd? Because I hold meetings, and sometimes there's 5 women there and no men. I hold classes, and sometimes you'll have nobody show up. And it's frustrating,
First of all, thank you for what you do every day.
Absolutely.
I know you're going to provide specific things in New York to be done. I know that nationally there are probably 50 organizations now that have come together, from Indivisible and Move On, so general organizations, as well as more organizations that are based on women and women's health, from NARAL and Planned Parenthood and other groups like that, have come together. This May 21st is to show up at either the courthouse in your area, the federal building in your area, state capitals, and there's a map that you can get. I know Indivisible and Move On both have the map through their website, and the same is true for NARAL, and you can find out where those events are and recruit others to it. It's a start, and it needs to be continued, and I do think it needs to be continued at least through 2020 and the election. It seems to me possible that they actually may not rule against Roe, because I think that the justices may fear the backlash would be so great, it would empower our base if 7 out of 10 Americans right now do not want to overturn Roe, and they know that. but the chipping away still means that women's lives are in jeopardy.
One right here. Right here. You had your hand up before.
Sure. I was just going to add to what you were saying, if you don't mind, a statement as opposed to a question, because I really appreciated the blend of your answer of the need to act politically now, but I also really appreciated the historical context that you provided on the fact that there's a span. You know, we train people for a span and things happen incrementally. So, as someone who was formerly in politics and public health and now writes children's book, I would add to this to say that educating kids at a young age into the habit of understanding their rights over their body, their power to be engaged civically, opportunities for them to get in the habit of making a difference and being social activists. I think those things, over time, done well, also eliminate the, oh shit, look at the problem we're in factor, because kids can be raised on understandings if we do a better job at a young age.
I would certainly say I was raised on that, and that's one of the reasons I do what I do. So I really appreciate you saying that. Maybe you two can get together about the educating idea. If you do a little organizing here in the room.
And I also want to just add that, I mean, I'm not a president of a huge organization like NIRH, and I'm not like an incredible organizer and activist like Heather. We're all just
want to
people.
clarify. You are, and that's what you've done.
Well, but
That's
what I'm
organizing.
getting at. I'm just a person, and we're all just people, and we're all capable of taking action and doing this. And like, I'm educating myself every day, and I'm reading the news, and I'm learning about how to talk about things, and taking classes, and now I'm going to lobby. Like, I go to Albany and I lobby with NIRH and with Planned Parenthood, and like I volunteer with Planned Parenthood and I escort, and I go to City Hall and I advocate for better comprehensive sexual health education in schools. And like, that's something we can all do. We're all just people and we're all capable of it.
I think a question right over here.
Yeah, so I was wondering, beyond just, I feel like we operate a lot under like a fear that like things are getting undone, and so we're like always clutching at this like protective, like we can't let this go. But one thing that I think this movie shows, and I'm curious to hear people's thoughts on this, is that like what the way abortion is happening in this movie is totally different from the way it happens in a hospital, in terms of the support women get, the culture around it, the way women are talking about it. So I feel like if we could also just imagine what it would look like in a world, not just trying to protect something that we feel we're losing, but if we could imagine what abortion should look like. I don't know, I feel like that was present in the movie and part of the...
It's a really great point. I have to tell you, this is where the Debbie Downer turns into the it's not all gloom and doom. The reality is that the 7 in 10 that Heather talks about is absolutely true. 7 in 10 people don't want Roe versus Wade to be overturned. But more importantly, the research that we've done is if you actually ask people how they want abortion to be, what they want that experience for women to be, 94% say they want it to be informed by medically accurate information. More than 80% say it should be respectful of her decision. More than 80% say that she should be supported in that decision. So if we actually talk about the experience in an affirmative way, you actually reach more people. Because even people who might think that it isn't okay for me, or I don't really like that it's legal, actually think that it should be respectful, that it should be supportive, that it should be available and accessible. And I think that that's something that really, you're right, we should talk about how it should be and not just the horrible things. Because that's what motivates people for the long haul. Isn't just the bad, but really what are you trying to go for? What are we about? And that's a lot of the work that we do in the States, is to move forward the proactive bills that are going to actually secure these and safeguard these rights. Many of you, I know, were with us to get the Reproductive Health Act passed here in New York. It took us 10 years, but we got it done, and we're thrilled about that. And we're working with Vermont, which just is about to do something similar, and with Illinois, which is over the next 2 weeks, pay attention to Illinois. If you know people in Illinois, tell them they need to be contacting their state legislatures for the Reproductive Health Act there, because they have 2 weeks to get it done, and we could get it done. So there are a lot of things that there's a positive too, that I don't want us to just dwell only on the negative.
This, by the way, this woman here
Yes.
is a national legend.
Yes.
She has probably the largest archive of women's movement memorabilia and original documents. And Laura X has taken this on, and we thank you.
Thank you. And you have something to share, please.
And I what?
You have something to share.
Oh, well, I just saw a headline and didn't read the article, so I'm not being very useful, but there was a headline that said Justice Breyer, Supreme Court Justice Breyer, signaling that Roe versus Wade is about to be overturned by the Supreme Court. And so I was wondering if somebody had read that whole article and what in fact was happening, because of what Heather just said. She seems more sanguine than that headline. So I'm concerned to know what's what. And also, what do we do? Because what I've been hearing is from the people I work with, who are mostly under 35 or so, and that they are planning on, what's the word? Stockpiling the abortion pills, and to be able to give them away.
So I can actually answer a lot of that, I think. The headline I think you saw is probably about dissent that Justice Breyer issued in a very recent case, had absolutely nothing to do with abortion or women or reproductive rights. And his concern was that the case was an explicit overturning, 5-4 overturning of a case from 1979. And one of the things that I worked on a case in 1992 called Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and we really thought we were going to lose, truly thought we had the same problematic vote count that we have now. And the reason we didn't lose then was because there were moderate justices, Justice O'Connor and Justice Kennedy in particular, who said stare decisis, the idea that the decision stands, is so fundamental to our federal jurisprudence that we cannot overturn the precedent in Roe versus Wade. Now, they tinkered with it, they kind of messed it up, but they didn't fully overturn it. The fear is that in seeing how the court was willing to overturn outright 40 years of precedent and spend 3 paragraphs on the concept of stare decisis, sort of like as a poo-pooing of it, was what I think he was responding to. So that's I believe, the headline you were hearing. And in terms of the second piece of your question, the fact is that we have a lot of evidence from around the globe, many places where abortion has been illegal or unsafe or both. And we know that medication abortion pills are extremely safe, extremely effective, and if women have the information and the right pills, they can manage their own abortions. They can do that with the support networks that they need to have, and that's what happens around the globe, and it's really reduced maternal mortality and morbidity around abortion. So I think there are already efforts to make sure people have that information. There's a lot of gray area in the law about this, so I'm not actually a lawyer. I often played one on TV when I worked for legal organizations, which is why I actually knew the jurisprudence question. But so there's some legal gray area there, but frankly, we are probably going to be in a new moment of civil disobedience. So there's a lot of conversation about how can we make sure that the right information and pills get to women if they are not able to get clinical services. I think we're about out of time. So let me just give you a couple of things that you can do right now, especially if you live here. First of all, rally Tuesday, Foley Square, 5:30. At least that's the current understanding. We were all still working out the details when I left the office, and but that's what I understand. Tuesday, rally. Look for information. You can go to NIRH, NIR Health .org and sign up, and we'll make sure you know about it. You can Google it, you'll find it. Second, we are working now, we have a campaign called Fund Abortion NYC. It's a campaign that the National Institute's very involved in with a lot of other important partners, which would make New York City the first city in the nation to have a budget item that pays for abortions for women for whom they face economic barriers. It would be a $250,000 line item in the New York City budget for 2020. We are organizing now. The budget has to happen in June. Contact your city council members. Look for the hashtag Fund Abortion NYC. Search for that. You'll get all the information you need. So that's another thing. You can make New York an even better place for people who need access to abortion care, and you can do that right now. Third, yes, we passed the Reproductive Health Act, but frankly, our elected officials are getting beaten up over it. They need to hear from you. You might think they are with us, but don't just take them for granted, because our opposition talks to all of them all the time. And I also encourage you to think about supporting other local abortion funds. The New York Abortion Access Fund is the organization that would get the money from the city council allocation. But if you're concerned about what's happening in the South, look up the abortion funds, whether it's our partners at ARC Southeast or the Yellowhammer Fund. If you care about what's happening in the Midwest, you could give to Women Have Options in Ohio. You can give to the independent abortion clinics that are often the only clinics left in these states that have 1 or 2 or 3 left. Alabama has 3. They're all independent clinics. Mississippi has 1. It's an independent clinic. Give to the Feminist Women's Health Center in Georgia, if you care, in Atlanta, if you care about what's happening in Georgia. It's not difficult to find these places, and they really could use your help. So I encourage you to think outside the box in where you put whatever resources you can put into this right now, in addition to doing all the things you need to do yourself. And of course, look us up, support us if you can. I'd of course be grateful. And finally, I know that somebody sitting next to me is going to get up really early tomorrow and go escort to make sure that women, even in New York City, are able to get through the kind of harassment that they face outside the clinics. So look for your local clinic, talk to them, even if all you do is say, thank you for being here, you are of value to our community. I cannot tell you how important that is to them.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for being here.
I just want to mention there's a good documentary about Heather Booth, which you should definitely check out if you want to find out more about her work.
I have one more.
Tell people about this movie, because it's an independent film, and that is what's going to make it get out there to the people that need to see it, which is everyone.
There is the website, Heather Booth, the film, and there's another film about my life in organizing, from civil rights through Jane, through voting rights, through financial reform, through immigration reform, and now we're going to take on farm and bring down drug prices. The struggle continues.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. I hope to see you Tuesday.